We want to incentivize to think critically, especially on our current state of the world. We are being manipulated more and more often through media, through money for sure. 2021, Mi Primer Bitcoin was founded by John. And in 2022, they created the first version of the Bitcoin Diploma, which is kind of like our signature program about financial education based on Bitcoin. So we teach about the evolution of money, how we ended up here. We talk about these monetary orders that existed when the Fed was created, all of that history. You know, that's what education does. Like you feel, okay, so if I know this, that means that I can take care of my own destiny.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Sovereign Mindset Podcast. Today, we have a very special guest in studio. She is the Director of Education for Mi Primer Bitcoin, Miss Reyna Chicas. Thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure, Mike. Thank you. Really excited about this conversation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, Reyna, I guess where we could start is with your background. You're from here, El Salvador?
I am Salvadorian, yes, born and raised. Up until, 2016, more or less. I was like 26, 27 at the peak of, the violence in the country. I went and lived in Guatemala for 5 years. And then I came back. And when I came back, it was all this, it was right after COVID. Found out about Bitcoin during the quarantine, watching Grey's Anatomy.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I watched an episode. There was this hacker thing going on. And, when you have nothing to do, you just look up what is this character doing these days. And then I searched what is Bitcoin. When I came back, I asked my brother. He had a better idea. When he explained to me the first time, I didn't really understand. But on internet, I found Andreas Antonopoulos, which I will say that he was my orange pillar in a sense.
For a lot of people.
For a lot of people, yeah. I'm glad I found him and, there was still a lot of hype. And then, long story short, but I found, we heard the rumors about Bitcoin becoming legal tender in El Salvador. So then we were like, okay, maybe we should kind of get into this more. We bought some Bitcoin. We bought some Bitcoin even earlier, like before. Mm-hmm. So we've been trying to save it. But I think I didn't see it and its own, like a capacity or like the potential of it other than, okay, let's just save this to make more dollars. So yeah, I was born and raised and then, yeah.
So what was life like here? Can you give us a little more details into what it was like growing up in El Salvador, especially like with the gangs and the influence that they had on society?
Yeah, I mean, it's very funny. Like when I go, like people ask me these questions now and I kind of recap. It's crazy to think that we've passed that phase that we never thought it was going to end at some point. You kind of just get used to it. It's not normal, but you get used to it. Of the fact that you need to be careful who you hang out with, like where do you hang out with. My dad, I mean, even until today, you see, like he dropped me off and he's still to his capacity, never liked us to use taxis or Ubers or anything because it was a scalable program. It started, very on their own colonials and small neighborhoods here in El Salvador, like a brotherhood. Because I remember when I was little, where my grandma still lives, it was dangerous. Everybody, oh yeah, that is dangerous. But it was never this like bloodly dangerous. They were psychopaths there because they were like young teenagers just checking on people. But then it kind of became a whole mafia, right? Like it escalated to the point of, drugs and gun traffic, people traffic, the whole thing throughout Central America, and I believe in Mexico too. I've heard a story from a very valid source. He got away right on time because he left a few weeks before the régimen of excepción started, and he was in jail for 10 years. And he went illegally to the U.S. to work there, but he was a member of the gangs here. After 10 years, you come back, there is nothing. And he spent a lot of days, like a couple of months in Mexico with some of the cartels there because they had contacts. No, I just spend my time we have these huercheros here in El Salvador, like friends in Mexico. And we're like, how do you, after 10 years in jail, have contacts, with Mexican cartels? So we knew then that it was like even bigger than we thought.
Yeah, it turned out to be like a whole international crime ring, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Stemming from the States down here to El Salvador. Mm-hmm. And what you're saying is that it started off pretty benign. Let's just say, not benign, but like it wasn't as extreme. And then little by little got more and more extreme.
Yeah, it got more extreme. They got more violent. They got definitely more violent. um, the level of, I will say, both cruelty and at the same time deliberately, like, the freedom. I mean, I don't like the freedom, but the freedom they have, that they know that they would not be charged for anything. I think that's what it even like put our moral even down that it already was by living in such a violent environment, is the fact that you know that nothing was gonna be done. There were just so many cases, so many disappearances. I remember that a couple of times I used to track some of the news because they were kind of related. I will see, like, for example, down in Peru, there were some disappearances, normally women, young women, certain time. There were some disappearances in Mexico, Guatemala, and then over here too. So I was like, this is too much of a coincidence that around the same timeline of time, everything is happening. And here I had, like, I have family members that died because of gun violence.
Wow.
And it was just so frustrating, the fact that you had to live with these people as your neighbors. Like, you knew who probably did it, or if not, the group they did it, but you cannot say anything.
There was no accountability, no retribution.
See,
Yeah. And it was it because the government was somehow involved as well in all of this, or was it just that they were helpless to do anything?
I wouldn't say helpless and not maybe directly involved, but definitely didn't want to take on that big task.
Gotcha.
They just saw how it works, and then you just live in these gated communities, big houses. There has always been areas in El Salvador that you could come as a tourist and nothing was going to happen, like in everywhere. In general, most of the country was very dangerous for sure. Like, you cannot use public transportation, and you could be robbed on the street. But if you live, San Benito area and stuff, Escalon has always been okay-ish. So I will say that the government never really cared. If they didn't try to do anything in particular to stop it, or to at least slow it down, is because somehow, if not directly, but all their members were being beneficiated from it.
Interesting. Now, I've been here on and off for the past year and a half. And I can't imagine what life was like during that time. So it's really interesting to hear people's perspective when they come on a podcast and actually have lived this out. What's it like now living here in El Salvador with it being relatively safe, and actually not even relatively safe, being extremely safe? Is that a difference that you feel?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have to praise what it is true. Absolutely. It took us a while, I think, after unlearning what it was like. Again, like I mentioned, I did leave El Salvador, not because I really wanted to leave, but it's one of these phases in life. You're already working, you're making okay money, but you don't even are able to enjoy it or hang out with friends because it was too dangerous to go at night. It was just, you could end up at the wrong time, the wrong place really easily.
So bad luck could happen at any moment.
At any moment. And so I think now after, the regime started, which, I mean, I think it should be lifted at this point, but anyway, maybe 6 months? Probably after 6 months, then we were during 6 months to a year, we're like, okay, is this gonna stay like this? Is it true? Is it not? Because a lot of at least to some police officers, and I'm not generalizing, but I know that some even members of law enforcement were involved, especially in the smaller communities, to cover some of these people. So that's why there was so much impunity, because, you would call out to someone, but he will tell, oh yeah, that person, kind of drag you in, so you have to take care of it. So now I think more people has this confidence that you can call for something, and just sort of justice is going to be done, like they're going to arrest someone, and it's safer to be able to move anywhere. We went back to visit family and friends that we have not seen for over 10 years at their houses, because we could just not get in. It was just too dangerous to go. My brother, for example, used to go to where my grandma is very little, because it was just too dangerous. And you have to follow certain rules. If you go at night, you have to turn your lights off. Otherwise, they know that you're not from the community.
Wow.
So it was the whole, psychological, I think, that you have always been an alert, kind of in survival mode, I think. And now you at least have this, I mean, there is a sense with the security that gives you a bit of hope that then you can focus on other things. Your energy and your, peace of mind can be focused on building or working differently. So I see it on, for example, people that works at, super selectos, supermarket chains, um, fast food restaurants that they, closed late. So that was very hard to even them, to companies like this hire. They would provide transportation, but if you live in a red zone, you cannot even get transportation. So it was even harder. So now I think it's at least that part.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a big part because it really exemplifies the fact that you need a secure, stable foundation in order to build from. And it just shows like, okay, if I can't even hire people because they won't come to work because the shift ends too late for them to get at home, so I can't run my business. So then ultimately these are like roadblocks to improving, the economy, the country, and so forth. And so it shows me just how important it is to have a foundation of safety so the citizens can then build upon that, at least from my perspective. And that's what I'm seeing here. So you actually left from El Salvador to Guatemala for a while?
Yeah, I went to Guatemala for a while because I learned English earlier. I mean, not earlier. I was like 20 years old, so more than 15 years ago. But I had this opportunity to go visit Antigua, Guatemala, which is a colonial city, UNESCO thing. Guatemala is also, has its thing as well. It's not super safe in certain areas, but in general, it's always been like these little bubbles where tourism grows and where it's more popular. That is safe enough. Like I lived there for 5 years. Yeah, 5 years each, and never, had any bad encounter. Never in that small community. If we will go to the city, we'll just be careful. And yeah, it's one of these YOLO times that you just like, work from manager, but to bartender, like everything. So it was really fun.
Just getting away from home and experiencing life in a different context, right?
Yeah. And it's kind of what it changed me also, like eventually to, okay, cool. This is all fun and games, but kind of get serious, right? Like, okay, what are you going to do? Because I left university here, I was feeling like I was not going nowhere. My goal was to maybe work at the same company, but I was feeling already super trapped. And so I was like, okay, I mean, I'm not seeing myself working in this place for 10 years anyway. And if I don't do this, what would I do? Because there is nothing else that pays better. So it's just these existential times that you have. And then 2020, like kind of kicked off. And I think, I mean, it had its, of course, repercussions in our life and everything, but it helped me even better to be like locked in, learn new skills, start working more online, which what I was already doing, like being able to, I think everything to me was come down to freedom. So I felt like if it was people that I met there traveling, that they could live anywhere and work from anywhere, I was like, what is this? It was something that to us here was still not familiar. Not familiar. We didn't have these big dreams of seeing the world. Yeah, maybe that's it. Like
that's interesting because, from what I'm hearing, your path to trying to find purpose and meaning, as well as your values of freedom and then discovering Bitcoin, it seems like you kind of had to be predisposed to these ideas a little bit beforehand. Were you always of this mindset?
A little bit of, see, maybe. And I will give this credit to my dad. He's always been a little bit of more like never, we didn't even went into the Bitcoin space before COVID, and we were already pre-vax, no vax from before, even when the whole narrative was like, what? And we were like, hold on, like absolutely no. And I was not aware of any, the Bitcoin Twitter at all, nothing. So I think that I was probably predisposed.
Yeah. And did you feel like a little isolated, or did you feel kind of like secure in your position as far as like, not going with the program and not following the, the whole narrative and the propaganda along that came with that?
No, we did feel pretty isolated. I will say my family, my close family, my parents, my siblings, and I, because everybody was against this idea. It's like, what are you doing? You are irresponsible, either family here. And it's funny how now even older family members that live in the States are like, I think this was all a lie, like who knows what and we're like, yeah, we told you so. And we just said, like, hold on a bit, right? Like, what is the need? You're okay. So in here in El Salvador, I mean, at least one thing that I need to be thankful for it was never enforced, but it was one of the first countries to have it. So a lot of people just ran into it. And the same with the mask and everything. The moment that they said, okay, it's free, you're free, take off your mask, we were the first ones. But still people will look at you like, what are you doing? Like, it shouldn't be. So yeah.
Did you, because I'm curious, I wasn't here during COVID, but I heard that initially the enforcement was pretty strict and the lockdowns and so forth. But then they reversed course pretty quickly. And I'm curious more of the sociological happenings at that time, because same thing in the states of Florida, when we would go around without our mask, you got all these dirty looks, even people confronting you. Did that happen here in society? Were people like actually pressuring you to conform and go along with the rules?
I did. Yeah, I think it did. Especially, we've always like, and I particularly liked, the whole, I believe in medicine. Like, I know, we heal, but I know that our body has the power to heal itself as well. So I believe a lot in nature and this type of medicine. So we do have a doctor that has these principles, and he went to programs and shows. They didn't have a lot of exposure, but it's like, just take the sun, go on walks, like there is nothing wrong. And it will be this. So we believe in that, and we will still get dirty looks. Even sometimes at some clinics, if you don't wear a mask, they were like very enforced. So I was not here during like the main quarantine. I believe I came back early August, September.
Of what year?
Of 2020. So because to come back, I will have to stay at a center or something to quarantine. I definitely didn't want to do that.
For sure.
So I was like, oh, absolutely, I'm just going to stay in Guatemala. And I stayed there. But I remember that it was very, very, very harsh, like quarantine and enforcement, because, I spoke with my family, and you couldn't move much, like from, to city to another city. If it breaks like the city, like San Salvador and Santa Tecla, for example.
For sure.
They're next to each other in this very tiny space, but you wouldn't be able to cross.
Wow.
Yeah, to cross. Because my mom takes care of my grandma. She lives in another like municipality, let's say. So we have to ask for so many, like we're going to bring her food, etc. Like it was always a little bit of a struggle. So it was very, very enforced. My dad is a very social being, so he did struggle a lot. I think he was never a super believer on depression or anything of that. He's always been like a tough, older guy. But he saw it during those times, like, when your mind starts playing tricks with you.
Sure.
About, what you believe, but what you're also perceiving from the external world, and making you feel guilty about all of these things. And like, I just want to take some care, and you're telling me that this is a bad thing. Like, I just want to go to the park. So yeah, I mean, it's, of course, now it's kind of fade away. But it took a while, like I will say 2 years.
Yeah, it's a good memory to reflect on, because, I think that time was very, it revealed human nature to its full capacity, and the ability to manipulate like the masses on scale through fear and propaganda and so forth. And so I think it's a good memory to kind of reflect on and keep in mind, because we don't want history repeating itself again, right? And to your story, I think it's a similar story for everyone. So just I can relate, and I'm sure so many other people can relate as well. Okay, so let's move away from COVID and that stuff. Let's get into your journey into Bitcoin a little bit. What was that like? Specifically, the details of how you went from Grey's Anatomy to now becoming a director of education for Me Premier Bitcoin.
Yeah, so when I found out what it was, and I started talking to my brother, and it's like, okay, but do you think this is it worth it? Should we buy some Bitcoin? Is it really hard? Where do we put it? And I believe, and this is, I think, in general, a common idea that women, we are a little bit more responsible of where we put our money than women. Like men tend to be a little bit more impulsive. If I lose the money, I lose the money. So I did check into, okay, so this is like a cryptocurrency. What does that mean? And I saw, of course, Ethereum. And it's like, okay, but if this is whatever, how much was back then, like 20,000. And then Ethereum, it must be a reason why it's such a difference. So maybe I hold on into Bitcoin for a while until I learn it really well. And then I can see if it's worth getting into these other things. And so I never you study Bitcoin and then you stay with it if you don't come from the other way. So I never bought any other cryptos. And I got very passionate on 2022. 2021, Mi Primer Bitcoin was founded by John. After the Bitcoin law came into effect, started teaching a little. And in 2022, they created the first version of the Bitcoin Diploma, which is kind of like our signature program, 10-chapter book about financial education based on Bitcoin. And so that year, I think I found them through a YouTube channel or something. And I saw that they were doing a meetup. As it still happens, still a lot of men in the space. So I used to see the clips of the meetups and I saw a lot of men. So I felt like really intimidated to go. I was like, and I didn't have many friends anymore. Like, I moved, and for many different reasons, even friends that I had in El Salvador have also moved to either Europe, the States, Canada. Like, we didn't live here anymore. And so nobody wanted to go with me. And when I went on my own, I met Dapo. And I remember I told him, hey, like, I want to learn more. And we talked, and he was, but what do you want to learn? It looks like you kind of figured it out. Because, to this, it's been like, 2 years of me watching videos and learning. And so I found
Andreas
that
Antonopoulos.
Andreas Antonopoulos reading his clips. Watching, actually, this is crazy, but when I found out, about Max Kaiser here in El Salvador, I remember that he was at those, one time Andreas was, on this kind of Q&A sessions that he used to do at the end of his things in the little commercial. And even Andreas was like, is that Max? And I was like, oh my God, this guy has been around ever since. I mean, they were even since before, but I didn't know them. So and it's funny to see his talks, 2-3 dudes sometimes, yeah, bigger, like more people, bigger audiences. But originally there are some that couldn't be more than 10 people where he would speak to. And now you see this big Bitcoin conference. It's crazy how, how much like the community, or at least the attention and interest in has grown. So in 2022, I think it was either at that meetup or something around that I found out about Adopting Bitcoin, the conference that was going to happen here. And I went into their website, and another, like, to me, what the heck? Because I saw, the tickets, $300 for foreigners, right? Like, it was less for Salvadorians. But it also made me wonder, it's like, do people actually pay these prices to come to another country? El Salvador was not super safe back then. It's still. And pay flights, pay everything. And you consider that El Salvador has a minimum salary of $365. So to me, to see a ticket of $300 or $400, like, it's a month's salary here. And through a Telegram chat, I found that it was $25 for Salvadorians. I was kind of saving. I was like, it's kind of crazy, but I want to go. I want to go and see. And again, I felt like it was a parallel, like, world of tons of, we call them gringos, like, no locals at the hotel, at the Hilton Hotel. And after that conference is that I also, like, there is something going on with this. It felt, like the passion on people and everybody trying. It feels like sometimes a religion, right? Like evangelization. And it was really, really cool, really interesting. So then I knew about the guys, right? Mi Primer Bitcoin, and I kind of like wanted to be more involved. Like, I reached out. I was like, hey, this is what I can do. These are my skills. I will help. I would like to help or volunteer. You have something. I took the Bitcoin diploma. And then, long story short, there was this opportunity to go to Lago Bitcoin in 2023, which is this other circular economy.
Where's that
at? In Guatemala, in Panajachel. So to me, it felt a little bit like, oh, this is cool. Like, I love Guate. It's a second home, and I'll be able to go. It was interesting that they wanted a woman for some reason. And when I went, I found out that it's basically, this is still a predominant Mayan community. So these topics about money, and a guy comes to your tienda or your shop and wants to talk to you about money, like, it doesn't, they don't receive it really well. So we try to educate the community. I was still doing, my job. I was a freelancer, like virtual assistant. And I started to like let go of the clients because I wanted to work on this full time. And so I messaged the guys here. It's like, if there is anything that I can do for you guys, let me know. I would love to complete, like work full time, complete my time here, go back. It's going to be 10 weeks and I stayed there 6 months. And I think because...
At Bitcoin Lago.
At Bitcoin Lago, Bitcoin Lago in Mempana. It was harder than I thought. Now, there are businesses accepting Bitcoin, but there was very low interest in on actually learning how it works. They just saw it as another form of pay to receive payments. They're very, very like, I don't know the real percentages, but I'm certain to say like over 75% probably there are, the town survives on tourism. So a lot of tourists, a lot of shops, and those are the ones that normally receive the payments. Restaurants, artists that sell their services or their things. And so when I had time off, like, the time off that I was supposed to be paid to do this, and they were no one interested to learn, is when maybe that's when the proof of work comes up sometimes, right? Like you just do things because you wanted to do it. The less that you try to calculate, or the things in life that you measure like less and have these big ideas or plan, are the ones that ended up working more for
so
your
when you
growth.
try to force like there's that universal law where you try to force things and it actually moves further from you, but if you let things just organically fall into place, that's when things kind of start working out.
Yeah. So that's why I felt over there. It was like, oh my God, like I kind of want to do this full time, and maybe not even to the level like of teaching, like teaching on the schools every day or to adults every day. Like it taught me a lot, but I knew that was probably not my call, like over and over. And so I think navigating that particular thing of kind of personal growth, but wanted to have an impact, played out really well. So
Awesome.
yeah, that's how, then I was teacher lead when I came back, and then now director of education. So it's more of overseeing the team and pushing more programs and materials over. It's a lot of work, but it's very rewarding. So
I can imagine.
Yeah.
So then let's get into Me Premier Bitcoin. Can you tell me a little bit about the program and the organization itself?
Yeah, so we are a nonprofit, non-governmental organization that teaches financial education based on Bitcoin. We want to show people, people to incentivize to think critically, especially on our current state of the world. Like we feel like we are being manipulated more and more often through media, through money for sure, which is how it works. And so we have these pillars of, being independent, impartial, and introductory Bitcoin education. We just want to take people from 0 to 1, like just being a base layer for people to discover what Bitcoin is, how it works, to its foundation.
Now, just real quick, is the education meant for children or adults as well, or is it span across ages?
So it was expanded across ages as a need only. Like it wasn't by design. Originally, the program, the Bitcoin Diploma in 2022, the first one was to be taught in schools to teenagers. And so that's why it had more activities, and even the workbook had a little, the look, more for those ages. The more and more it has grown, the interest, the use of it. We've seen the need of creating the material a bit more, so it can,
More broadly.
Yeah, exactly, more broadly through. And we will say that is from, I mean, a kid from 15 years old can understand it, but we go from 18 all the way to young adults and older. We've had classes. I had an opportunity to teach at a school in Panajachel at the lake, and the kids more be like, what, 11? No older than 10. I used the program as a base. Of course, we didn't get into the most, but they understood. I think as kids, we have this curiosity, and not everything that we as an adults, when we learn about Bitcoin, have to unlearn. So things kind of make sense for them faster. So it was really interesting.
That is such a good point, because, the resistance that it comes to learning Bitcoin comes a lot from all the programming and conditioning that you have to unlearn. It's like, oh my God, you're going to basically rewire me, and I'm going to be left as a blank slate here. And then I got to learn on top of that, this real, technical and what may seem technical and philosophical concepts around money, and then understand what Bitcoin is, and then understand what private keys are. It's like really daunting when you first kind of like see it all.
Yeah.
So I could imagine that's a big barrier to education.
Mm-hmm. Yes, because it can feel overwhelming, right?
Yeah.
Like it feels like either you know it all or you might as well leave it. And we want to show people, one, first, how fiat works. We don't even know what fiat is. Like most of it, I didn't even know that that's how it works. I didn't know what money was backed up by anything. So we teach about the evolution of money, how we ended up here. We talk about these monetary orders that existed when the Fed was created, all of that history. And
Wow, interesting.
how,
From Jekyll Island and everything? From Jekyll Island, like
Yeah, exactly. From Jekyll Island. Yes, exactly. And it's interesting enough. The other day, I was trying to find out when the IMF was created and the World Bank. I was familiar, of course, with the Fed, but it was around the same date.
Yes.
I believe it was 950 something. Yeah, absolutely.
I think, yeah. Okay, interesting.
Yeah, like right after, the first Bretton Woods and then this one. So, and everybody picks their rabbit hole, I will say, right? Like, eventually, like if you're a historian, it kind of makes sense to you, the evolution of money and all of that. And we show how Bitcoin works and absolutely, teach about self-custody. And we incentivize people to use it even more that way if you're going to use as a reserve of value for longer, like storage value, sorry. So, but it's a journey, and especially in El Salvador, especially in communities here, I will have to ask others, outside of here. It can be really, like you're very intimidated when, oh, hold on, like if I lose these and I lose my money. So that's why we get sometimes certain comments of, why do you teach custodial wallets? But I'm like, these are the easiest one that people can start with. We just try to tell them how they work. We do tell them how they work. Try to incentivize to use them like you will use your cash. You don't withdraw all your cash from the ATM. Just have on your wallet what you're going to use on your weekly, use or basis, daily basis. So they understand. And then the more they, I think, get exposed to Bitcoin and use it as a medium of exchange as well, the more it clicks eventually, okay, yeah, this is my money, so I should take care of it. So it comes that sense of responsibility.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Do you see the transformation happening in people that way?
Yeah, I do. I think it's yeah, exactly. It's one of my favorite parts. People might say, with the basics, I learned, or I took an introductory class, 1 hour, that's it. That's all I need to know. Or, okay, I'm going to go with a Bitcoin diploma. And then, okay, so I'm going to read this safety book. And it's really cool. Everybody, not everybody that finds out and discovers Bitcoin has to work in the space. I mean, it turned out okay, I think, for us. But you can just continue doing, if you're a lawyer, if you're a marketer.
Yeah, you feel empowered,
Yeah.
right? It's just like you understand a big part of civilization, that being money, and then you're actually given the keys, like for lack of a better word, to like for your own empowerment, for your own financial empowerment. And regardless of whatever you're doing, that could be really a rewarding feeling once you get it.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel, that's what education does. Like it empowers you. And that's what we might overuse this word sometimes. There is different type of empowerment, but there is one that it comes with education that is more about these opportunities that gives you mentally, like in the sense of you feel, okay, so if I know this, that means that I can take care of my own destiny in a sense. When it comes to the use of my money, where I come from, what I can do with it, what it was created for, and what is meant to be in
That's
my
amazing.
personal life. And that's what is happening little by little. We don't feel that we have this accountability, like on our own destiny, like we don't have the power of our own destiny. And so we are becoming this society that is less empowered or, moral down. We seek validation or just chase the next better paid job for the sake of chasing money, but not real value or purpose. The value that you give to the world is what the people take from you. But I do believe in a whole circle, of course, of sharing knowledge and doing what you love, but also getting paid for it, or like making a living with it.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the idea of providing value to the world is probably one of the more fulfilling aspects of life. And so when you can do it, and then you receive payment for your labor in an incorruptible money like Bitcoin, I mean, and what you're receiving, I mean, it just brings everything together. You're like, wow, this is an amazing feeling. And I don't think people have had that relationship with money, especially fiat currency, because it's always depreciating in value.
Yeah.
And so all they know intuitively is that, oh, okay, there's this thing here that I exchange for goods and services, but I got to get rid of it as fast as I can because
Yeah.
it's always losing value. So it definitely changes one's like internal relationship with money to that being more foundational to their existence.
Absolutely. And like we are not I will say, I don't know if this is the right term, but like slave of your certainties. Like you believe that you learn something and that is it. I think it's very naive to think that we cannot learn something new every day. And so it gives you this power of, oh, I didn't know this. And then it's like you expand your critical thinking, your thinking by default. And there is, I feel like, a better way.
So this is interesting. This is a thought that just came to my mind, but like, when you mentioned a slave to your circumstances, I could imagine that difference between understanding Bitcoin and then living in survival mode here in El Salvador, where you really do feel like you're just a slave to your circumstances, especially during that time where you don't feel like there's much hope or opportunity just because of what's happening out in your country and the danger that you feel daily.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden being empowered with Bitcoin, I mean, that's just such a drastic change, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
I can imagine how, like, when someone gets it here in El Salvador who's from here, it's like really enlightening.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's how I felt too,
Yeah.
little by little. I mean, the part of less violence and everything, of course, is very well welcomed. But you were feeling like we are all born in certain contexts, circumstances. That's fine, but it's up to us to like create our own reality. We make our choices and we become someone. We become who we want to be. And when you feel trapped, and it's like there's nothing, but then there is just at least one like light of hope. Imagine, let's just, for example, play that nothing would happen in El Salvador in the past 3-4 years, that we'll continue to live in the same violence. If we would have the opportunity, as hard as it sounds, with Bitcoin, I can go and live where I want to. It's not the ideal. I mean, this is your community. But it gives you this hope of, okay, if I'm not happy in this place or with this life, I can create a different lifestyles, or at least look up, like one of the towns in the mountain, Berlin, for example. Berlin in the Sultan was never super violent. Berlin was like better in terms of violence and everything. Apaneca, Taco, they were all kind of okay always. So even that, okay, you're feeling like super trapped here, but you have the option to look up in the future with a maybe more hopeful lens.
Yeah, I could imagine what you guys do is important as well, because there's a community aspect to Me Premier Bitcoin, right? You're always having meetups and along with the, educational efforts. And it's kind of like, you need to be, your hand needs to be held a little bit, because like you said, it could be intimidating first learning about all of this stuff, but then realizing, oh, there's some really cool people that I can, hang out with and learn kind of through the peripheral, where it's not necessarily like textbook learning, but I can learn just by being friends with these people. I'm sure that goes a long way to your educational efforts as well.
It does, yes. Yeah, because we've had all of these kind of stories, like, they show up to the open house or to a board game nights that feels more, chill environment. Okay, I just come here to see. And then they ask you questions more into the 101, because we always have these insecurities of wanting to sound dumb. It's like, no, like this is completely valid. I've been playing sometimes, like Block Hunters, this game for Bitcoiners. And Jamie from the Bitcoin hardware store said a comment about mining. I was like, is that how it works? Like, we always learning something. I didn't know that it had that thing, like you can, anyway. So it goes a long way, because then someone might visit. We're trying to expand, our meetups throughout the country. So we're doing some in Santa Ana. We did one in San Miguel, because we've been pretty, in San Salvador for now, resources, time, etc. So we've once a month tried to go outside of the city. But the point, like the main goal, is to empower someone in there in the local community to run, like to keep their meetups going. It doesn't have to be super fancy. You don't have to prepare the best speakers. You can just gather people together and like, okay, let's talk about this, or let's just watch a video about how, like the story about the Fed or something, or Bitcoin or mining, and the educational aspect. I think it's very important to do it when you try to always tell people, okay, yeah, you learn all of these. Don't believe me, go and verify yourself. Like, always encourage, don't trust, verify. Don't believe me, don't believe what we told you. Like, just read it on your own and confirm if any of this does make sense. That's why we try to stay also independent from any external associations. Either this is government, sponsors, companies that want to endorse their own agendas or products for the sake of doing it. What we say promote, or like we show to people, is something that we've tried before, that we know it works, that have solid reputation. I mean, you can never be 100% certain nothing is going to happen, but at least to encourage people. And I think that foundational trust is very important at the beginning, that you don't try to push people too hard. Everybody's going to come on their own, and like we all did, you don't need to go too hard on wanting to push ideas on people. This is good. Not gonna work.
It reminds me of this Chinese proverb. At least I think it's a Chinese proverb, where it says, if a man is thirsty, you give him half a cup of water, and if he's still thirsty, he'll ask you for more. And it sounds like that's very much the approach that you guys have. It's like, hey, we're going to provide you with this, and don't trust, verify, go out there, do your own research. And if you have any questions, we're here to provide more for you.
Yeah. And if we're not here, it's very important, I think, especially in leadership, to not have all the answers. It's good to, where we can send you to. There are so many good initiatives in the Bitcoin space, Library of Satoshi, or, going more into the technical aspect. So we can always send people to go and see, okay, or if you want to learn more, we don't have it yet. We're going to try to work, but it's really hard to come up with, materials all of a sudden and designing everything. So it's the beauty of, the Bitcoin community as well, the collaboration aspect, when it's done, sincerely. Like, we don't believe in competition. We believe in collaboration. If you can do it better than us, that's cool. Go ahead, teach your community. We're not here like to compete of, no, you use our materials. If they help you, if they serve you, great. That's what they're for. If you need more questions, if you need more, help, if you have more questions, we're here. And that's how the Lightning Network started as well. We have all our programs and materials are open source. And so they're free there, downloaded from GitHub. But more people were reaching us to ask, no, but like, I want to know more, like, how do you run your meetups, or how do you do it the first time? How do you enroll? How do you even get students? So it goes as basic as, well, we created a Google form and we put some questions, and that's how we had an enrollment.
So your whole framework at Me Premier Bitcoin is open sourced.
Open source.
And are you having then, let's just call them nodes pop up around the world?
Yes. Yeah. And these nodes are basically educators that, teach all materials. They are led by the community. Always we have to be community led, Bitcoin education, Bitcoin only education. They've started, teaching the materials, either with the Bitcoin diploma or the introductory class. If they are online, then some of them run some local meetups when they are in person. Or, there is this incredible guy, Felix, from the core in Africa. They found their own projects, but they use it. So we have a general assembly, let's say, like it's at the end of every month. And it's very encouraging to see it on a personal level, has been, because sometimes we work every day and push things forward, but we're like, what's the point? And seeing all these people like, okay, yeah, this really did help me. This didn't. Like, if you guys could help us with this. So our goal is always for them to be independent as well, but to help us to the extent we want to be this foundation of others, to be easier for others to build on top of us. Gotcha. Now we have this online school now, which is an LMS platform, learning management system. So if others are creating other type of courses, within their community that are Bitcoin only, of course, technical, either is Nostre, more mining, more how to run a node that we don't have yet, go ahead and put it on your platform, right? Like, we just want to be accessible and encourage others to do more on their own as well. Don't expect to always, be carrying out us holding your hand along the way, like the whole time.
So if I have this right, you have a platform now where other people can contribute based on what they've learned as well. Is that what you're saying?
We want to start checking that as well. We haven't started, but we've had this idea because we already had some people, hey, the guys at this community that they are really teaching the materials for a while. And it's like, but I'm trying to create this kind of crash course about these 5 topics. What do you think that, how I could teach them? Should we just create presentations? What do you think about the idea? And so I came up with this idea, I relate with a team. Why don't we use the LMS? I mean, we can, right now it's being used just for our materials because it's what we have. But if other people have and can contribute more, then that's great. Like just let them. If it's in English, then even others can learn from it. And so everybody, like all the nodes create kind of their own, let's say, cohorts in this space. So the people in Indonesia, the ones in Argentina, and the ones. So at the moment, there are 60 active nodes in over 39
Wow.
countries.
That's amazing.
Yes, yeah, it's a phenomenal growth, and it's really all from the community,
Let me ask you, what's your drive? Do you see your work as empowering kind of the local communities where maybe they don't have the same opportunities as other people, as well-connected people or people in the cities, or like, how do you see the work that you're doing?
That's a really cool question, Mike. What is my drive? Yeah. So I think as a woman, especially, and I think in the space, not only in Bitcoin in general, always felt like, you have to prove yourself more. So that part of navigating the growth, not for the sake of killing, but with integrity, has been the most challenging one so far. And so my drive, I think, has become to be able to do this, to have the most impact without selling out, without selling our values, being able to reach out as many people as I can, if that doesn't sound too presumptuous, but in the sense of something that I can do here with my time and my energy will be able to serve someone that I wouldn't even met. They wouldn't even met me. But there is a need outside. There is a need out there. And at the moment, I'm living here in this time and space that I'm getting paid to do this, right? Like I'm getting paid to think big picture. Okay, what else we can do and to help out. So to switch sometimes to go from the smaller task, kind of micromanagement sometimes on a day-to-day basis, to what do we see ourselves in 5 years? What do we can do these 5 years? Okay, we're starting in El Salvador. Is this where we want to stay? Like we always say, like we're currently based in El Salvador because we never know. Especially, teachers and all of that. There's always going to be need for in person. But when you work a bit more behind, and in the computer, certain meetings, these we can do in person. But if I can have the opportunity to go and show others and be an example, it's not easy, but we did it. This is how we did it. This is what it worked. This is what it didn't. We created these programs. We created these systems. We created these, whatever, dashboards, files. This worked. This was too complicated. We're in that process, actually. We want to be able to even open source or financials, how we do it, how we can be Bitcoin only. And it's easier said than done, for sure. We're like, okay, that would be great. But then it's like, how do we do this?
And how do you see Bitcoin then? Do you see it as a life raft for a lot of people? Like, what's your view on Bitcoin's impact on the individual, but also on communities and society?
I think in a couple of years, there's probably not going to be like a lot of use per se. Like, it's not going to be everybody using Bitcoin, but it's definitely going to be more awareness. So I believe it's going to be this kind of silence layer of what other things are going to build on. We've already been passing that bit of, okay, what is Bitcoin? Yeah, but what can I build with it or from it, right? So I think in a few years we might be more, at least this awareness around it, so more interested, more knowledge. Once you know it, like once you actually understand it, there is no way you're going to stay just, with your hands crossed. Like there's no way. Either you work for Bitcoin or don't. Well, I don't think you able you work for Bitcoin. You work for a mission or something, or You buy it, you store it, you build a legacy for your family, whatever you want to do. I think that's how I see it in the future,
Nice.
close future. Couple of.
And so what? Let's talk about Me Premier Bitcoin and the state of it right now. You're in El Salvador. What plans do you have? And also, I'm curious. You can answer this or not, but like with the IMF coming here, like what are your views on that?
Mm. Well, my personal views are personal. Like this is not a representation of MPP. I was a bit disappointed of the fact that this was done at this period, because I believe that Bitcoin is what it can save you, right? In rough times, sometimes there is people that says, "Oh, I will never sell my Bitcoin." I will, if I had an emergency and I needed to do a surgery for my family. I will have to take all my Bitcoin and pay for it. So the state has been, like saving on Bitcoin for a while already. So I was wondering what was the need. The IMF, there is never strings attached. There's never no strings attached. I mean, that's what it said, right? There's never no. There's always something that you have to give in, and they've selling, like the book from Alex says, selling development and good future out of exploitation for so many years. So I was a bit worried. Bitcoin teaches us low time preferences, and so I was wondering if they weren't thinking about on the long term or the future generations that's still gonna have to pay to these guys. It feels like they kind of never get enough. Like if you go and do the research, there is just so much, to me, is evil behind what they do, them and the World Bank. So I wouldn't say they change anything, because if I want to be, seeing the positive side, the fact that the government in El Salvador never really, really took over the education from the beginning after the law went to effect, others had to do it. A lot of people were still not even aware what was legal tender, what was not legal tender, what this means. So now that people has been exposed to Bitcoin because of the law, they're like, okay, but it seems that this is being used, it's international, it's borderless, is censorship resistance, etc. To the basics. They've found out, like, they just have more interested. So even if it's not longer legal tender, which a lot of people don't even know at this point, they're still planning to use it. They're still planning to learn from it. So you can just control what you can control, right? So I will say that that's the part that I will lean into it. I remember when I saw the news and everything's like, oh my God, when we go back to the schools and all these people is going to say, what's the point to learn of this? Up until now, at least, I see the Ministry of Education trying to do some parts. We did programs with them late 2023, last year, to teach teachers on the public school system, us along with the Beacon Beach team. And so then they go and want to teach their students. That was about 500 teachers.
Wow.
So as far as I know, that's not being done now. But I mean, again, like, I don't know, I can be wrong. So I just hope that continues, like if we as a MIPRE become out of the public system now, I will expect it's because they're ready to take on. Like, we were created, or materials, the Beacon diploma was the one that they basically use as a base to create the materials that we taught to these teachers, just make some tweaks for, Ministry of Education and all of that, not open source. But other than that, I just expect that within the community here, the internet grows. But if not, this is again, right? Like, why we will leave our destiny and faith to governments. I believe that Bitcoin education and adoption will always be grassroots. It's on us. All of these movements, they didn't start, they didn't start normally. They didn't start from the top to bottom.
Yeah.
So all the revolutions.
All right. So to sum it up, what you just said here, and see if I got it right. So personally, you're disappointed with the whole IMF move coming here to El Salvador, because IMF always imposes their will and takes away sovereignty from countries to make their own decisions. But practically speaking, nothing really has changed on the ground as far as the impact that the IMF has had here. Is that right?
That's right. For now, right? Like that's how it is. Like, you don't see it the next month. I don't think we're going to see it next year. is what is gonna the consequences. I'm just worried a bit of the consequences that will come in the upcoming years.
Now, and then as far as Me Premier Bitcoin, you guys are continuing your efforts here. Is it?
We're continuing our efforts here. We're not working with the Minister of Education anymore, not in the public school system. Of course, there are education institutions independently that definitely have reached out, and we still have the energy and the time and the resources to do it. So we keep going on communities that, for example, in the coast, like I have this hotel, I would like to train my staff. Oh, someone from the staff is like, can we teach the community? Like I'm leader from this church, for example, and we would like to learn more. So we're very encouraged by that as well, because now we feel that this is our DNA, like grassroots community-led Bitcoin education. We are preparing also to create more programs, more materials. We already have an introductory class, which is a presentation, a crash course of 60, 90 minutes of the Bitcoin diploma. We want to make something maybe, I will say, more advanced. We started calling it Bitcoin for Business, might not be like that, because it's just these materials that you can learn more after the Bitcoin diploma. There is always people, okay, what's next? What can I learn from? When it is not technical, whatever we can create, we're going to do it. Always open source. We have been working on this teacher certification program, which is also for beginners. Like, you just go through quickly what our materials are. And this is not to Bitcoiners per se directly. If you're a Bitcoiner and you want to know how to teach your materials, that's fine. But you can be also a newbie, like don't know anything, but you're just interested in teaching others. And so we go through, of course, the Bitcoin materials, plus more analogies, how to handle objections, how to, some certain public speaking skills that we learned thanks to Dushan from AmeriH on the Bitcoin Educators Academy. He has this 3-day course, really, really great. And he's been very collaborative. He's a node in Roatan.
Yeah. I know him.
Yeah.
It's interesting to hear that you brought him up, because I know that he has Bitcoin education initiatives as well. Mm-hmm. And you guys are working with him.
Yeah, we were working on that. I told him, like, this is what we want to do. And he was very eager, like, yeah, I would like to help. We're like, we just need a little bit of, like tweaks here and there, because we're not going to create this generation. Like, we just want to teach people again to be able to.
And you said it's a public speaking course?
It's not a public speaking course. No. Within the 5 days, it includes, the 2-3 days about how to teach, what our materials are, what's the point with it. And no, it's not a public speaking per se completely. We do teach certain fragments of.
I'm just going to say, I think that's pretty much needed, because there is kind of a barrier to how Bitcoiners communicate with the actual world. And sometimes we get so caught up in our bubble and our mm-hmm. communities that we forget, like, the language that we use doesn't necessarily translate or resonate with, just the average person.
Yeah, no. And I want to, give credit to him, because he invited us to participate. We're like, this is what we want to do. We don't know still how we're going to do it, but we have this idea. And it was just, like him sharing knowledge. I know that his course is, let's say, not open source, but we take some of the learnings from his course, but we don't extend as much as he does, because he doesn't per se teach Bitcoin. He teach how to educate. So you could go to his course, and yes, you learn about the Bitcoin aspect, but if you pay attention, like good attention, you can teach everything. With his course,
it's principles of teaching.
It's principles, and then like public speaking, how to handle objections, good presentations.
Amazing.
And then we go to he does Bitcoin analogies, which he's great at. And we have some ideas, and we have AI these days, but it's always good to have this interaction and kind of feedback back and forth with someone in person. I was lucky enough, I took it with him here in El Salvador. Actually, he did his first or second one when he was trying in Bitcoin Beach. And he's doing it more and more now over, all over the world. We still have to debate how we're going to do this more scalable, because it's really hard to do always in person.
Sure.
If you want to teach others. So we've started with some pilots. We went to Paraguay. They were really excited about it, got really good feedback. So this is what we want to focus now, our energy.
Interesting. Wow, Reyna. Is there anything else you want to cover here?
No, I don't think so. I think we talked enough.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we covered a
Yeah.
lot. I'm really excited about what you guys are doing. I mean, it was really interesting to learn just the depth of what you guys are up to and how far you want to extend it. So, I'm a fan of Me Premier Bitcoin, and I wish you guys all the best and all the success. And, it's interesting because it's very also, I forgot what the word is called, but like the more successful you guys are, the better it is for the network as a whole. So, absolutely rooting
Yeah.
for you
Great.
guys.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike. Yeah. Thank you for having me.